Hi, I'm Diane McGarry with Drake It Arts. With me today are co-host Tom McGarry, author Rory Power, and ASL interpreter Suzanne. Rory grew up in New England, where she lives and works as a story consultant for TV adaptation. She received a master's in prose fiction from the University of East Anglia.
Yeah.
Always want to say Anglia, but no, Anglia, and is the New York Times bestselling author of Wilder Girls, Burn Our Bodies Down, and In the Garden Burning Gold. We look forward to seeing what you have to share with us today, Rory.
Thank you so much for having me. Um, if I'm good to just start, I'll just get into it.
Yes, I'm glad that you're here.
I thought I would read from almost all of my books today. I'm going to skip the sequel to one of them because we don't need to get into that. But I thought I would read kind of the scenes or chapters that first inspired the rest of the book or that came to me first. And in some of them it's the beginning, and then in some of them it isn't. But yeah, we'll keep it snappy, but hopefully it'll be a good time. So I'll start with my first book, which is called Wilder Girls. It's a young adult book about a private school, boarding school for all girls, and it's on an island off the coast of Maine. And when we meet these girls, they've been under quarantine for about a year because something is going horribly wrong and mysteriously wrong with their bodies, and they're ill in a way that nobody has quite yet figured out. So for this book, the scene that came to me first was just the beginning. So I'll just start there.
Sounds good.
Chapter one. Something way out in the white dark, between the trees, moving where the thickets swarm. You can see it from the roof, the way the brush bends around it as it rustles to the ocean. That size, it must be a coyote, one of the big ones hitting shoulder high. Teeth that fit like knives in the palm of my hand. I know because I found one once, the end of it just poking through the fence, took it back and hid it under my bed. One more crash through the brush and then the stillness again. Across the roof deck, Byatt lowers her gun, rested on the railing. Road clear. I keep mine up just in case, keep the sight raised to my left eye. My other eye's dead, gone dark in a flare-up, lid fused shut, something growing underneath. It's like that with all of us here. Sick, strange, and we don't know why. Things bursting out of us, bits missing and pieces sloughing off, and then we harden and smooth over. Through the sight, noon sun bleaching the world, I can see the woods stretching out to the island's edge, the ocean beyond, pines bristling thick like always, rising high above the house. Here and there, gaps where the oak and birch have shed their leaves, but most of the canopy is woven tight, needles stiff with frost. Only the radio antenna breaking through, useless now the signal's out. Up the road, someone yells, and out of the trees, there's boat shift coming home. It's only a few who can make the trip all the way across the island to where the Navy delivers rations and clothes at the pier the ferries used to come and go from. The rest of us stay behind the fence, pray they make it home safe. The tallest, Miss Welsh, stops at the gate and fumbles with the lock until at last the gate swings open and boat shift comes stumbling in, cheeks red from the cold. All three of them back, and all three of them bent under the weight of the cans and the meats and the sugar cubes. Welch turns to shut the gate behind her. Barely 5 years past the oldest of us, she's the youngest of the teachers. Before this, she lived on our hall and looked the other way when somebody missed curfew. Now she counts us every morning to make sure nobody's died in the night. She waves to give the all clear, and Byatt waves back. I'm gate, Byatt's road. Sometimes we switch, but my eye doesn't do well looking far, so it never lasts. Either way, I'm still a better shot than half the girls who could take my place. The last boat girl steps under the porch and out of sight, and that's the end of our shift. Unload the rifles, stick the casings in the box for the next girl, slip one in your pocket just in case. The roof slopes gently away from the flat top deck, third floor to second. From there, we swing over the edge and through the open window into the house. It was harder in the skirts and socks we used to wear, something in us still telling us to keep our knees closed. That was a long time ago. Now, in our ragged jeans, there's nothing to mind. Wyatt climbs in behind me, leaving another set of scuff marks on the window ledge. She pushes she pushes her hair over one shoulder, straight like mine, and a bright living brown, and clean. When there's no bread, there's always shampoo. What'd you see? She asks me. I shrug. Nothing. Breakfast wasn't much, and I'm feeling the shake of hunger in my limbs. I know Bayat is too, so we're quick as we head downstairs for lunch, to the main floor, to the hall, with its big, high ceilings, scarred, tilting tables, a fireplace, and tall-backed couches, stuffing ripped out to burn for warmth, and us, full of us, humming and alive. There were about 100 girls when it started, and 20 teachers. Altogether, we filled both wings off the old house. These days, we only need one. The boat girls come banging through the front doors, letting their bags drop, and there's a scramble for the food. They send us cans mostly, and sometimes packs of dried jerky. Barely ever anything fresh, never enough for everyone. And on an average day, meals are just Welch in the kitchen, unlocking the storage closet and parceling out the smallest rations you ever saw. But today is a delivery day. New supplies come home on the backs of the boat shift girls, and that means Welch and headmistress keep their hands clean and let us fight for one thing each. Byatt and me, though, we don't have to fight. Reese is by the door, and she drags a bag off to the side for us. If it were somebody else, people would mind, but it's Reese, left hand with its sharp, scaled fingers, so everyone keeps quiet. She was one of the last to get sick. I thought maybe it had missed her, maybe she was safe. And then they started, the scales, each a shifting sort of silver, unfolding out of her skin like they were coming from the inside. The same thing happened to one of the other girls in our year. They spread across her whole body and turned her blood cold until she wouldn't wake up. So we thought it was the end for Reese, and they took her upstairs, waited for it to kill her. But it didn't. One day she's holed up in the infirmary, and the next she's back again, her left hand a wild thing, but still hers. Reese rips open the bag, and she lets me and Byatt root through it. My stomach clenching, spit thick around my tongue. Anything, I'd take anything. But we've got a bad one. Soap, matches, a box of pens, a carton of bullets, and then at the bottom, an orange, a real live orange, rot only starting to nip at the peel. We snatch. Reese's silver hand on my collar, heat roiling under the scales, but I throw her to the floor, shove my knee against the side of her face, bear down, trapped by its neck between my shoulder and my forearm. One of them kicks, I don't know who, clocks me in the back of the head, and I'm careening onto the stairs, nose against the edge with a crack, pain fizzing white. Around us, the other girls yelling, hemming in. Someone has my hair in her fist, tugging up, out. I twist, I bite where the tendons push against her skin, and she whines. My grip loosens. So does hers, and we scrabble away from each other. I shake the blood out of my eye. Reese is sprawled halfway up the staircase, the orange in her hand. She wins. That's the first chapter of this book. I started writing it while I was at work at a different job. So we just hope that my boss never noticed that I was using Google Docs instead of doing what I was supposed to do. But the thing that I've always loved the most about that chapter is that the first sentence is just the single word of something. And I had originally had that as a placeholder because I just didn't know what it was that I was thinking about yet. So I was like, I'll come back and I'll fill that in. And then I was reading it back and I thought, actually, I think that's fine. I'm just going to keep it as it is because I don't think the main character would know either. Next, I'm going to read from this book, which is In a Garden Burning Gold. It's my adult debut and the first in a duology of adult epic fantasy books. And it was inspired by my family is from Greece. They're from the northwestern part of Greece, so like right up in the mountains, almost Albania. And that landscape and the history of that region is really unique in terms of the rest of the country. So that inspired me a lot. And I wanted to kind of take that landscape and transform it into something fantastical. So this book is about a family of four siblings and their father, who is like the ruler of the kingdom that they live in. And he's not the nicest person. And these siblings are trying to kind of grapple with their role in the power structure and also figure out a way to live their lives and deal with the problems that they've got going on. So I'm going to read Um, from a scene that it's pretty near the beginning, but the imagery in it is what really first came to me for this book. And in terms of context, I think all you need to know is that there are four siblings. One of them stays home a lot and is kind of like a shut-in, and his name is Nitsos, and he's who we're going to meet the most. Um, Now, with only a few hours before her suitors arrived, Rhea was wandering down a path that followed the perimeter wall. She was coming up on a small gap that led to a staircase, which carved down the cliff face to a small beach below. In their first few years at Stratathoma, she and Lexos had spent their summers there, burning their feet on the sun-scorched stones and letting the salt spray curl their hair. She shook her head, determined to chase Lexos from her mind. Whenever she thought of him, all she could see was his face as he'd asked her to trust him. Don't you see, she wanted to tell him, you're asking me to forsake our father. If she married the Lascaris boy, if she committed to destroying the Scorizo, which is a term that you would get context for in the book, but you don't really need it for this, so we'll just keep going. Uh, it would mean that she was turning her back on Baba and on her own trust in his judgment. Lexus had done that years ago, whether he knew it or not. She was still thinking about Lexus's plan when she bumped into Nitsos, stepping onto her path from an adjacent one, with his eyes fixed on a book he was in the middle of reading. Hello, Nitsos, she said, stumbling a few steps into the grass as his shoulder collided with hers. He looked up from the page, surprised by the sound of her voice, even though he'd practically knocked her over only seconds prior. I didn't see you. Clearly. She ruffled his thick mop of blonde hair and gave him a gentle shove until he'd made enough room that they could walk on the path side by side. Where are you going? I'm surprised to see you out of your workshop. I'm going to the garden, he explained, and she hastened after him, past the opening that led to the ocean staircase. Nitsos, she said, resisting the urge to lay her hand across his forehead and feel his temperature. We're in the garden. He gave her a look so withering that Rhea suddenly felt all of her 100 and some years. I know, I meant my garden. His own private one, full of his creations. She'd always known he kept one, but even so, she'd never all the way understood what it was Nitsos did with his time or with the gift given to him by Baba. Now she found herself curious. Would you mind, she asked carefully, if I came along? He said he wouldn't, or rather, he said nothing, only kept walking down the path, a sudden spring in his step as Rhea followed. They soon arrived at a place where another wall branched off from the perimeter and curved sharply around, enclosing a patch of land that was tucked against the house, between it and the edge of the cliff. The way in, Rhea could see, was a small, low archway built into the wall, to which a rickety door had been affixed. Nitsos hesitated for a moment, his hand trembling slightly on the latch, and it occurred to Rhea that in their 100-odd years at this house, she'd never been here before. All that time, and there were secrets still at Stratathoma, parts still of her family that she hadn't laid eyes on. Won't you show me? She asked, prodding as gently as she could, and he glanced at her nervously before jostling the latch and opening the door. She had to duck to pass through, and so it was the grass she saw first, brown, crackling, exactly like what grew in the rest of the grounds. She couldn't help but feel disappointed. And then she looked up. It was snowing. Flakes drifted down from the trees, falling in what seemed like random eddies until Rhea looked closer and saw the patterns, the grooves dug into the ground, and the miniature belts that carried the fallen snow out to the wall, where a mechanized pulley system ran it up and back into the gossamer dispersal network that Nitsos had built in and among the leaves. And what leaves they were, translucent in the autumn sunlight, bright copper filaments running through them like veins. As she watched, one detached from its branch and came floating down, its papery surface catching the air and slowing its fall. Some of the trees were tall, spindly things, their trunks white and peeling. Inside, through the gaps in the bark, she could see their clockwork bodies, gears turning, spools winding. Others looked like the ones they had up north. Plane trees, they were called, their trunks so thick you couldn't wrap your arms around them. And in the back corner of the garden, across a carpet of lightly tinkling glass bluebells, was an ancient-looking cherry tree in full bloom. Its blossoms were hand-painted in swirls of white and pink, petals made of wood shavings and paper. Overhead, a hummingbird was in flight, its gears turning so quickly that it made a high-pitched whir that Rhea could hear from the ground. It had been painted in a deep blue, and its eyes seemed almost to have the same downturned shape that Rhea knew from her family's portraits. It seemed so familiar, as though she'd dreamed of it once, but she was quite sure she'd never seen it before, neither it nor anything else in Nitsus's garden. She would have remembered. Do you like it? Nitsos asked, and she turned to see him smiling eagerly, a wind-up cricket sputtering in the palm of his hand. How? She asked, staring up into the canopy of mechanically fluttering leaves. Haven't you heard? Nitsos replied. I'm very good. He set the cricket down, and it hopped off into the grass until its wind-up ran out and it tipped over onto its side. Beyond it, a deer was moving stiffly through the trees, taking 3 steps before bending to sniff the ground, and then repeating the whole process again. Within Stratothoma's walls, Nisos's creations still bore the markers of their mechanical origins. Out in the world, they would move and breathe as real beings. Rhea crouched down to watch the snow inching along the grooves in the ground. What are they? The flakes, I mean. Fabric. Here, take one. She plucked one off the conveyor belt. It glinted softly in her hands like some kind of metal, but it was so soft, so light. It was even cold. It's a stiff silk, Nitsos explained, pulling a magnifying lens from his pocket. I embroidered it with silver thread to help it keep its shape. She took the lens, held it over the snowflake. There was a star and its points, the latticework around the edges. And then Chrysanthe helped me, Nitsos went on. She showed me how to paint all of it. Let me use some silver leaf. She thought it added a nice bit of shine. It's lovely. Would you, Rhea cleared her throat, would you mind if I kept it? Nitsos looked so pleased that he might burst, and Rhea felt a pang of guilt for not having asked to see his garden sooner. What about that? She said, pointing across the garden to the cherry tree, which looked almost older than the house itself. Has it been here long? I made it a few summers ago, Nitsos said, taking her arm. Come and see. He led her across the garden, their steps keeping carefully to the narrow, winding path of living grass that led through the carpet of glass flowers. They were making a beautiful bell-like sound as their petals jingled lightly against the stems. The cherry tree was unlike the other trees in the garden. While the others seemed to move on their own, their gears turning and operating constantly, the cherry tree was still, its only movement coming from the hummingbird who paused on its branches once during every round of the garden and looked at her strangely with those downturned eyes. I was trying something new, Nitsos explained, as Rhea ran her hands along the trunk. This close, she could see it was made of burnished beaten copper with verdigris beginning to creep across it like moss. She knocked on the trunk softly with her knuckles and heard a soft, echoing ringing. It's hollow. To leave room for the mechanism, he reached out to where the trunk split in 2 directions. At the split was a small, stunted branch, and from it stemmed one blossom. He took gentle hold of that flower and began to turn it. Rhea could hear gears winding, could hear them gathering tension. Ready, Nitsos said, and he let go. The branches began to move, revealing themselves to be made up of hundreds of smaller segments that adjusted to give the tree the appearance of being buffeted by a breeze, and one by one a handful of blossoms began to fall, suspended from their original perches by tiny thread-like cables that glittered in the sun. They hung in midair for a moment, and then, as the gears began to slow, the cables retracted, pulling the blossoms back up to the spots on the branches. It's not very practical, Nitsa said, stepping back to admire his handiwork. Well, none of it is, but I do like it. Do you come here much? Rhea squinted up through the branches at a snatch of blue sky. I always thought you were hidden away in the attic. Once a day, at least, Nitsa said, heading back the way they'd come. She followed, her hand trailing reluctantly along the lowest branch, to make sure everything's running smoothly. She could imagine it very well, the sky gray overhead and Nitsos alone as he walked from the house out into the grounds, never looking over his shoulder to see if anyone was coming along, because nobody ever was. It was absolutely pitiful, but he'd mentioned their sister, hadn't he? You said Chrysanthe helped you with some of it? Rhea said eagerly. Nitsos nodded, his eyes still fixed on something in the distance, probably some small imperfection only he could see. Does she spend much time here? Nitsos turned to Rhea, a sort of blank confusion in his expression. With you, I mean, she clarified. It's only the two of you here with Baba when I'm away. And Lexos, Nitsos said, which left Rhea feeling a bit silly. Of course. Lexos was here with them too, but somehow that didn't quite feel as though it counted. If Lexos was anywhere near as distant with Nitsos as Rhea was ashamed to admit she had often been, then his company was probably not worth very much to their younger brother. Still, it was Nitsos who'd remembered, and that was comforting. She hated to think any of her siblings left alone. Yes, she said, and Lexos. I'll stop there. But the first thing I thought of for this book was the image of the garden with all of the like wind up trees and animals and flowers. And I wrote that first and then was like, what do I have to make the book be about to
Yeah.
get them to be there?
Yeah.
Um, and everything kind of expanded from there.
That's fun.
Um, and I think I'll read from my newest one just for
Oh,
last.
exciting. So exciting.
This one came out in June.
Mm.
June. Um, and it's a young adult thriller. It's about a girl named Nan who her best friends disappeared last summer, and this summer, this is on the back of the book, so like it's not a spoiler, but I won't say it because it's included in the bit that I'm going to read, and maybe it'll be a fun surprise for someone. Um, but I'm just going to start from the beginning for this one. Start with this, with a bruised blue sky. Then the clouds gathered low on the horizon, their bellies bloodshot with sunset. And last, the billboard frame, and the picture stretched across it. Three girls wearing summer smiles, Edie, Jane, and Luce. My best friends, my favorites. Salt Cedars too, now that they're gone. For the few, for the first few days, after they put the billboard up, there was almost always someone here in its shadow, praying sometimes or leaving behind wildflower bouquets. Today it's just me, heat rippling off the road as I balance astride my bike. I came to say goodbye, to take a moment for the four of us before it's all lit candles and bullshit speeches down at the vigil. You'd hate it, I whisper to them. The crowds, the noise, the marina's too busy to launch from, and you need reservations at Bullfrogs now. Tourists steal our table every night. I know some people are happy about it. It's the most activity the town has seen in years. Finally, Salt Cedar looks like the pictures in those brochures. Sunburned teenagers in life jackets, little kids diving off the backs of houseboats while their parents watch from the upper decks, drinks in hand. But these people don't care that the lake is going dry. They don't care that there's a half-built neighborhood abandoned at the end of my street. They just care that a year ago, exactly, my best friends wandered into the dark and let Salt Cedar Canyon swallow them whole.
Mm.
A shaft of sunlight sneaks past the corner of the billboard. I lift a hand to block it, blink hard as the gas station beyond swims into focus. Through the window, I can see Glenn at the register, his face lit up red by the Budweiser sign on the wall. He's wearing one of the t-shirts that the vigil volunteers have been handing out all week. Same picture as the billboard printed across his chest, same text underneath. Bring them home. He's probably about to close up and head down to the lake. I'd better hurry, or I'll be one of the last to arrive. I kick off on my bike, listen to the crunch of grit under the tires, glance back at my street dotted with prefab houses, then keep straight toward the rest of town. Coast easy and free down the hill, eyes drifting shut. If I listen hard, I can feel the girls with me, the air curving around their bodies. They're everywhere. In the lodge lobby, Jane waving as the elevator doors close between her and us. On my front steps, Edie's head bent over her phone as she waits for me to do up my laces. At the water's edge, Luce pointing toward the canyon arch. Somewhere behind me, a car engine rumbles, getting closer. I swing to the side and pedal harder. None of these memories will count for much if I'm late. The lodge is off to the right, parking lot already almost full with out-of-state plates. A man I don't recognize is waiting near the entrance next to a table stacked high with candles. I ignore the one he holds out to me, keep going, slip between two pickups toward the far side of the lot, where Mr. and Mrs. Bristow are standing, sweat patches stark against their white vigil t-shirts. It's been a while since I've seen Jane's parents in person, but some things haven't changed. The sunscreen on Mr. Bristow's forehead, not quite rubbed in, the glint of Mrs. Bristow's wedding ring as she twists it absently around her knuckle. She's got her hair pulled back, heavy and dark like her daughter's. Jane used to lie out in the boat as we drifted, her hair spread long and gleaming over Luce's lap, gathering sunlight in its strands until it was too hot to touch. I leave my bike leaning against somebody's back bumper, wipe my clammy palms dry on my shorts before I close the last gap between me and Jane's parents. Hi, I say, skirting another group of volunteers. Sorry, I know I'm late. Mr. Bristow sees me first. Not at all, he says, and waves me closer. You're right on time. Next to him, Mrs. Bristow doesn't look up. She's poring over a clipboard, her mouth moving silently as she reads something off it. Her speech for the vigil, maybe. Is she nervous? Sure, there'll be cameras there, reporters and news trucks, but you think she'd be used to that after the press tour she and her husband have done on Jane's behalf. Mr. Bristow nudges her. Carrie? Carrie, it's Jane's friend. Hmm? She meets my eyes, and for a moment, I think she doesn't recognize me, but then she blinks, seems to wake from a long midnight. Oh, Nan, you're here. She wraps me up in a hug. I lean in, let her tuck my head against her neck the way she might if I were Jane. Is she remembering the same thing I am? 6 or 7 summers back, me waiting in the shade with my dad to meet mom after her shift at the lodge front desk. Jane climbing out of the Bristow's rental SUV, her mother's words carrying across the pavement. See, there's a girl your age. Jane waved at me then. It took me days to work up the nerve to wave back. It's good to see you, sweetheart, she says as she releases me. Gosh, were you this tall last summer? I think so. I smile uneasily. She's doing her best to seem normal, but her eyes are red and her voice is hoarse. It's painfully obvious she's been crying. I look away, gesture to the crowd. This is all, there's so many people here for them. You must be really pleased. Of course, Mr. Bristow says. It's a testament to the girls. Is there anything you need? Mrs. Bristow asks, all but interrupting him. There's a hunger in her stare, like she wishes she hadn't let go of me. We have water and sunblock over by the lodge entrance, and oh, you need a t-shirt. She flags down a passing volunteer. Can we get in a shirt? What size are you, honey? A medium? Let's get you a medium. Yeah. Moments later, a t-shirt is thrust into my hands, so fresh out of the box that the creases where it was folded are still sharp. I crumple it up against my ribs, make sure I can't see any of the girls' faces. Thanks, I say. I'll change before the marina. Speaking of, Mr. Bristow interjects, we should head down. The Gales are already there. I'm not surprised they aren't here with the Bristows. Edie's parents used to get along so well with Jane's. In those first few months after the girls disappeared, they did everything as a quartet. Every interview, every press conference. But Salt Cedar Rich isn't the same as Salt Lake City Rich. Before long, it was only the Bristows flying to New York and LA, only the Bristows appearing on national TV, only Jane that anyone was talking about. I don't think the Gales would ever admit to being angry, but they don't have to. Everybody knows they are anyway. Still, it could be worse. At least they tried. Luce's dad didn't even do that. What about Mr. Allard? I ask. Is he here? Mrs. Bristow's smile goes stiff, her eyes darting to the crowd milling around us. Kent was invited, she says too politely. I'm not sure he'll be able to make it, though. I think we're all hoping he won't. Whenever Kent Allard shows up, he brings trouble with him. Shouting, crying, stories and ghosts, and the smell of alcohol. I guess I understand it. Luce's mom left spring of last year, and then Luce disappeared that summer. Both Allard women gone by the time the cold came, and Kent so ruined by it that even the police left him alone after a while. Mr. Bristow's hand lands on my shoulder for a second, startling me. What about your parents, Nan? I don't think I've seen them yet. My mom's working, I say. She'll be inside at the lodge's front desk, waiting for the parking lot to empty out before she comes down to the lake. I'm not sure if my dad will make it. He said he'll try, but he might have to cover someone's shift. Dad works 3 hours away in Bryce, just like half the people in this town. He's a ranger with the national park, so was Luce's dad until they fired him last spring. And he's home so rarely that I don't always recognize his truck in the driveway. Well, Mr. Bristow says, tell your mom to take 2 candles. She can light one for him if he's running late. I'm sure she will, I smile, aiming for reassurance. Don't worry, everything's going to be great. They'll love it. For a moment, we lock eyes, and I know neither of us is sure exactly who I mean. Her mouth opens, a question maybe taking shape, but a volunteer calls to her, waving her over. I'm sorry, Nan, if you'll excuse us. I barely have time to nod before she and Mr. Bristow are heading for the lot entrance. A group of volunteers parts to let them pass. Silence carried with them, but it only lasts a moment before the noise starts up again. People everywhere, checking lists, carrying boxes, and all the while wearing those damn t-shirts. No matter where I turn, there they are. Edie, Luce, and Jane, their awful, empty smiles. I look down at the t-shirt Mrs. Bristow gave me. I should duck into the lodge bathroom and slip it on, leave the shirt I'm wearing in my mom's staff locker, go down to the beach dressed like everybody else, light my candle, and send my little paper boat out onto the water. But I can't. When I got up this morning, there wasn't any choice. I put on cutoffs, sandals, and one of my dad's old button-ups hanging open over my bathing suit. just like what I was wearing the day the girls disappeared, to make sure they recognize me when I go to say goodbye. I dropped the shirt in a box of spares on my way out of the parking lot. Back out to the road, the lake spread below. Already the shore is thick with onlookers. I can hear music playing, faint on the wind, Jane's favorite song. I remember she sang it that day in the canyon, stood there by the water's edge with her eyes closed as her voice echoed off the stone. If I went back, would I hear it still? Would I find them all there waiting for me? Is that what you want? A voice like Luce's whispers in my head. I lift my chin, let the wind slice across my neck. Of course, I tell her. I miss you. I love you all so much. She laughs, low and long, and as I start down toward the lake, I hear her answer. Yeah, right, she says. Yeah, fucking right. Chapter 2.
Mm.
The vigil should have started by now. It's been an hour since I arrived at the lake's edge, since a volunteer herded me up onto the deck at Bullfrogs and left me to wait with all the other VIPs. That's what we are, really. That's what this is. A fucking luxury box for family and friends, set apart from the rest of the crowd that's jockeying on the beach for the best view. I lean against the deck railing, try to count the people gathered below. It's more than I've ever seen in Saltpeter before, and that's not including everyone watching from the boats dotted across the lake. They've been out there since the sun came up, swimming, jet skiing, having a perfect summer day before dropping anchor for the night's entertainment. I check behind me, searching for the Bristow's or the Gales. Nothing yet. They're probably still waiting inside the restaurant. Bullfrog's dining room is cramped, and the whole place smells like stale beer, from its uneven floor to the life preservers hanging on the walls. But at least it's private. Quiet, too. If only they'd invited me to join them. Instead, I'm out here listening to the crowd, to plastic scraping across the deck as a volunteer sets up rows of white folding chairs, to the feedback shriek from the microphone as someone plugs it in. I won't be using it. I won't be standing up there telling everyone about my best friends. They didn't ask me to speak. No, they asked me not to speak. What were they afraid they'd hear? Nan? Has anyone seen Nan? I turn in time to see my dad cutting across the deck. Tall, broad-shouldered, and still wearing his park ranger uniform. He must have sped the whole way from Bryce to make it in time. Dad, I call, over here. His eyes find mine, and he smiles. Too wide to be appropriate, but nobody will care. Everybody loves Don Carver. Hey, sweetheart, he says, joining me at the deck railing. There you are. He gives me a hug. I go loose, let his body hold mine up. Mom's been busy at the lodge all day, and I don't mind being alone. I can handle myself, but it's a relief to see him all the same. Hi, I say, my arms tight around his waist, his badge digging into my cheek. I'm really glad you're here. I said I would be, didn't I? Yeah, but that's never meant much, especially not this past year. I pull away, will myself to stand tall. How'd you make it in time? One of the officers coming down escorted me, put on his lights, and told me to stay behind him. Dad laughs. I think we did about 95 the whole way. He shakes his head, staring past me to the lake beyond. God, this is something, huh? He keeps talking, but I'm not listening. One of the officers coming down, he said, down here? To Salt Cedar? The police haven't had much presence in town since they called off the search. A February press conference, the old sheriff working hard not to say what most people had decided was the truth by then, that if the canyon hadn't killed them that summer, the winter certainly had. After that, the cruisers stopped parking at the foot of my driveway. I slept through the night without police lights waking me up. And then Sheriff Paris retired and the new sheriff took office, and I figured it was as over as it was ever going to be. But sure enough, now that I know to look for them, I can spot at least two police boats out on the lake, bobbing side by side. Glistening white hulls, each one marked by a pair of small blue flags. What the fuck are they doing here? More questions, more poking and prying. They're no better than the reporters, rats picking through the leftovers of my girls and their lives. Didn't they get what they needed last summer? I told them the truth, as much of it as they have a right to, anyway. Anger simmers behind my ribs, but I tamp it down. Step back from the deck railing so abruptly that Dad raises his eyebrows. Sorry, I say. I think I need a minute. His smile falls. His sympathy is too soft. It sets a phantom itch across my skin. You know I'm happy to hang out with you. We can talk about whatever you want. Actually, do you mind checking on Mom? I dig my nails into my palm. I've barely seen her all day, and I think she was supposed to help with the families. The families? Just the Bristows and the Gales, I say, before Dad can get started on Mr. Allard. He won't be as nice about it as Mrs. Bristow was. Please, she might be inside. Sure, Dad says after a moment. I'll check. See you in a minute. He squeezes my hand and heads toward the door. He probably won't find Mom in there, but he might be able to tell me what the holdup is with the vigil. Has one of the parents broken down, or are they arguing about the program, fighting over who'll read what poem in what order, as if what they say matters? We know by now how it'll play out. We know whose pictures the news will show when they mention us at the bottom of the hour. Always Jane, sometimes Edie, almost never Luce. Nobody can find a shot of her smiling. And when they need to fill time, they'll play that clip somebody got of me on the lakeshore last year, a foil blanket wrapped around my shoulders while I stand there looking like shit. I wonder what they'll get of me this year. I practiced for it, learned how not to smile for the news crews and their cameras, how to keep from staring at the people in the crowd pointing their phones in my direction, blocking their own eyes from view. What if it isn't enough? What if I can't give them what they're after? I bite down hard on the inside of my cheek, let the flash of pain pull me back, bring me home to my body. Everything will be fine, Nan. Everything will be just fine. At last, the sun slips behind the canyon ridge across the lake, a crystal hush over the crowd as I sit between my parents 3 rows back from the microphone, all of us waiting, hanging motionless in that last luminous blue hour before dark. If it were any other summer, I'd be calling Edie, saying, let's go for a ride. Edie and me and the bike she stripped the brakes off just to see if she could. Some things you have to give up. Mom rests her hand on my leg, her fingertips digging into my thigh. You okay? I nod. Are they starting soon? I've been dreading this for weeks. The faster we're through it, the better. Just a minute, see? She nods toward the door leading off the deck where the Bristows are huddled shoulder to shoulder with a man I don't recognize. He must be someone they know from Salt Lake, which makes me hate him a little, the same way I hate all of Jane's friends from home. They hoarded so much of her, winters and birthdays and early school mornings. Meanwhile, here in Salt Cedar, we'd have traded half our lives away to have her for the rest of them. I face forward again, slouch against Mom, my arms folded across my chest. Why did they have us sit down if they weren't ready? Try to relax. It's only a little delay. She kisses the crown of my head. At least this way your dad and I could both make it in time, right? Is that relief I hear or something bitter? I'm not sure. She was one of the last to come down from the lodge, and I could tell by the flush of her cheeks as she burst onto the deck that she'd hurried the whole way. Afraid, I think, that I would have to do this all alone. Except there was Dad standing next to me. I'm so glad you're here, she told him as he hugged her, and then, pitched low enough that I know I wasn't meant to hear it, you could have called. A stir of movement draws my attention. The Bristows are coming to take their seats, led by a volunteer. The Gales trail after them, Edie's mom clinging to a mascara-blackened tissue. Here we go, Mom says. Dawn? She reaches across me, tugs on Dad's sleeve. Dawn, they're about to start. Dad's been twisted around talking to someone in the row behind us, the two of them chatting like they're at someone's retirement party, and not the closest thing we've had so far to a funeral for my best friends. Now he sits back, looking embarrassed. Sorry, he says. Oh, are we in the wrong row? Should we move up? With the Bristows and the Gales settled into their seats, it's clear that they've left the row in front of ours empty. Mom shakes her head. It's for the Allards, she whispers, like it's supposed to be kept secret, in case Kent shows up or Luce's mom, Maggie Allard, who's somewhere on the East Coast, according to the goodbye letter she left behind, finally free of this town the way Luce dreamed of being all her life. If she didn't come back to help with the search for her daughter last summer, why the hell would she come back for this? It's funny. I never used to think she had the right idea leaving, but today I wish I'd followed in her footsteps. Wherever she is, it must be better than this. I grit my teeth, gather every piece of myself until I'm pressed down to diamond, to pure will. In a few hours, the vigil will be over. I can get through anything. I can do whatever I have to. Up at the front of the deck, the head volunteer takes the microphone and switches it on. Everyone sits up straighter. It's time. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, the volunteer says. I half expect a cheer from the crowd, but then this isn't the Salt Cedar I know, loud music on the lake shore and fireworks set off by someone too young to be that drunk. I'll turn it over to the families in just a minute, but before we begin, we'll have a moment of silence in honor of the girls. Around me, people bow their heads and clasp their hands. Silence, the volunteer said, but I know for almost everyone here, it will be prayer too. I get it. I've done the same thing. Knelt by the edge of my bed, waited for a voice to thunder down from the sky, but the girls were all I ever heard. Wind buffets the microphone, its whistle carrying from the speakers on the deck until a volunteer remembers to turn the volume down. Behind me, someone's stomach growls. I almost burst out laughing. This is just so ridiculous. All of us gathered here wearing our most solemn faces when really Luce hated bullfrogs after they didn't hire her for that job bussing tables. Jane refused to swim at this beach. She said it smelled like motor oil and rotten leftovers. And Edie would have died all over again before she let them use that picture they've plastered everywhere. Nan, Mom draws me in close, our heads bent together. Deep breath, honey. You're getting a little worked up. Worked up? No, I am not worked up. I'm out of my fucking mind. We all should be. To mourn them like this, to wish last summer back to life when it was such a mess to begin with, it's a knife in the back, a betrayal too big for me to hold with both hands. So I won't try. I sag against Mom, shut my eyes, count to 10, but it doesn't do any good. Even in the dark, I can still see us, single file, climbing up one of the slots that branch off the main canyon passage. Black desert varnish striped across the red rock walls, and that ring of white high above our heads, left there when the water levels dropped. Did the girls know what would happen to them that day? Did they see it coming somehow? A shout from out on the water, loud enough that Mom gives a little hum of disapproval. I sink farther into her arms. It's probably some tourist who came to gawk at the dead girls. But then there's another, and the rumble of an engine starting up. The speakers crackle as Mrs. Bristow turns the volume back up. Please try to be quiet, she says into the microphone, her voice thick with tears. It's only a moment we're asking for. Somebody calls back in response. Too far away for me to understand and half drowned out by another engine sputtering to life. But I can hear the urgency in it, the panic. What is it? I say. Mom's arm goes tight around me. I shrug it off and get to my feet. What's going on? No one answers. The nearest volunteer is already making a phone call, and the others just stare at me, open-mouthed, as I push past my dad. Mrs. Bristow has backed away from the deck rail to talk to the Gales, giving me a path past her. I take it, squeeze between two Bristow family friends and in front of the microphone until the deck rail is pressed to my ribs. From here, I can see what broke the moment of silence. One of the police boats is moving out on the lake, cutting left into open water. I squint into the distance, follow the line they've taken until there, a dark spot bobbing in the water. My breath catches, a chill, a shiver as the hairs on my arms stand up. What is that? Somebody's outboard motor or a drink cooler fallen overboard? But nothing like that would have required the police. None of that would have brought the vigil to a halt. Let's sit down, Mom says, coming up behind me. I'm sure it's nothing. I don't think so. Not when the second police boat is moving too. Mrs. Bristow, the volunteers, their faces ashen and their eyes wide. I've seen all this before, haven't I? Which means there's only one thing it could be out there. A body. No, I say, no, that can't be right. Nan, please, you shouldn't look. Mom keeps talking, but all of me is there in that first police boat, bent low over the side as it eases closer and closer to the shape in the water. Which of my girls is it? And what's left of her? Will there be enough to bury? The boat reaches the body. Two figures emerge from under the hard top. Okay, Mom says, that's enough. She grabs my shoulder, angles me away so I can't see anything else, and at her touch, my will breaks, the fight in me gone like a candle blown out. She leads me back to my chair and sits me down, heart hammering, legs trembling. I want to look for the Bristows, the Gales. I want to know how they're taking it, see which of them has dissolved into tears, but I can barely see past my own knees. Is this happening? I say. Is it actually happening? Mom's crouched in front of me. Her face is creased with worry as it ripples into view. We don't know anything, okay? There's something in the water. That's all. Who is it? Which one? We can't even be sure it's a person, honey. It has to be. Fear creeps up the back of my neck, cold and clutching. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Excuse me, I hear someone call out. When I look up, a volunteer has her hand raised, a phone held to her ear, her eyes wide. I have it. Everyone on the boat is watching her. The parents, the other volunteers. We know what's coming. I think of Edie and Jane running ahead of me into the dark. Edie and Jane waiting for their turn to rest. Okay, it's secondhand, so I don't fucking spit it out, Mr. Bristow says. I've never heard him swear before. The volunteer clears her throat. They think it's Luce Allard. They want to know if her family's here.
Mm.
Someone lets out a muffled sob. Disappointment rushes through me, an emptiness behind it. If I had to see any of them again, if the canyon only gave back one body to bury. Wait, hold on, the volunteer says as people start to interrupt. She's still got her phone to her ear. Just a second, I think there's something else. The air drum tight as she listens. Finally, she starts to smile. They're saying she's alive. Luce is alive.
Mm.
It slips into me like a needle. Alive? She said alive. They pulled a body from the water, but it wasn't a body, it was a person. Nan, Mom says, smiling. Honey, did you hear that? No, I didn't. Somebody else is at work in my muscles, my bones, while I slip beneath the surface, crumble to ashes, harden to stone. This is impossible. Luce is dead. The girls are all dead, and I should know because I'm the one who killed them. And then that's the end of chapter 2.
Well,
And that's all I'll read for today because I just looked at the clock and I realized I said I would read for a short time, and it actually
No,
took
no,
about the standard length of time.
that's
So,
great. Like,
no.
what? Oh,
but yeah,
you are such an incredible writer. What suspense.
Mm.
thank you.
I mean, and the character, oh,
That one was I started with the billboard image and I just followed it from there, and I knew that I wanted to have for my second book, which is one I didn't read from, but it's called Burn Our Bodies Down. There's a not even a twist, but just something that happens near the beginning that's very important and it kind of sets up the whole book. But when my publisher was writing like the summary copy that's on the back of the book, they didn't mention it. And so
Uh,
I was like, well, I don't know how to talk about this book now if I'm supposed to
uh,
not spoil this thing.
oh.
So for Kill Creatures, which was the YA that I wrote after that, I was like, I'm gonna take the reveal, the twist, the knowledge that Nan is the killer, and I'm gonna put it as close to the beginning as I possibly
Mm.
can so that they have to put it in the summary
Oh.
and then I
Okay.
can talk about it. So
Mm.
it was strategic.
Mm. Mm.
that is interesting. How do you talk about one of the dynamic things if it's not there? And
Mhm.
yeah,
It
but
was just, sorry?
sometimes they're left to the end to like keep you guessing.
Yeah.
Right. The big reveal, but here it's not the big reveal. I would guess it's more, I don't know, psychology or
Mhm.
how did she get there or why did she get there? So it's not, what happened, it's why it happened, I guess.
Yeah. And there's also a little bit of like, well, wait, hold on. How is this girl back alive if Nan
Yeah.
is pretty sure that she was dead? So there's a little bit of kind of suspense there too. But it was really fun balancing. There's a now timeline, which is what those first chapters are from, and then there's some flashbacks that kind of
Mm.
get into what happened.
Mm.
And I'm such a sucker for that. Anytime there's a two timeline thing in like a book or a TV show, I'm completely sold.
Yeah.
So this was my chance to get to do one of my own.
Very nice. Well,
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's nice to have all these ideas and all this equipment, right, of how to write a story and then to
Mm,
use them along the way because it changes. Wow.
yeah. And this was a fun puzzle for me just to see like what happens if I kind of rearrange the order of things. Is there still a way to make it work and make it function and still be exciting for a reader? And I think so.
mm.
You know, your mileage may vary, but
Oh,
I like your use of detail to make the scene immediate.
thank
And in the
you.
first one, matter of fact, horrific.
Yeah, I think one of the things about writing YA that I love is getting to do adult characters through a teenager's point of view because there's such this like adults are almost this like black box where it's like I don't know what goes on in there when you're 17. You're like, I don't get it.
Mm.
Who are you? But being able to write that from an adult point of view, like from my own point of view, is getting to kind of put clues in where like Nan doesn't really get
Mm.
why the adults are behaving this way, but a reader might be able to be like, oh,
Oh,
okay,
Yeah,
there's something going on here.
yeah,
Um, that yeah, that's one of my favorites is adults and like parental relationships, but viewed through the lens of a kid who doesn't totally
mm,
pick up on everything.
mm.
well, no, they're not supposed to.
Right.
So do you like writing young adult as well as adult, or do you prefer young adult?
I like them both. They really give me a chance to like, I think about it almost as like different muscle groups, like,
Uh,
um, or like fast twitch and slow twitch in a way, which isn't to say that adult always has to be like slower and more methodical, but
mm,
at least in the way that I've written it so far, it's been young adult having more of a focus for me on like rhythm and momentum, and adult being a chance to kind of like luxuriate in a
mm,
moment. But yeah, they just like I feel like they stretch my brain in opposite directions, and so it's a nice
uh,
way to
mm.
keep nimble, so to
That's a good
speak.
balance. That's a very important thing to be balanced in our lives.
Mhm.
That's neat. And I bet you they support each other.
Yeah, and I learn things. They help me develop in both ways. Like for my young adult books, I love a scene break. Like in a chapter, you'll have a lot of different sections because I don't find that writing actual transitions between the scenes is always super helpful for
Mm,
those stories.
mm,
But for my adult book, I set myself a challenge of like, you're not going to use a single scene break the whole way. It's just going to be
oh,
completely written through, or if you need to actually do a full break, it'll be a chapter break.
mm,
And I don't know why, like, it was really difficult and it was a problem I created
uh,
entirely for myself.
mhm,
But now when I go back to young adult, having done that, it's like it makes me think, do I really need to break the scene here? Can I change it? Can I do it differently?
mm.
Um,
So
yeah,
it
just
dive into your writing by doing these exercises.
yeah, yeah. It gives me a chance to really like interrogate what I'm doing and make sure that they're choices I'm making and not like habits that I'm falling into.
Sure. And that's really important.
Mm.
It's really important. Wow, this has been exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew it would be.
Mm,
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, yeah, it's been wonderful. It really has been great.
yes. Mm.
So anyway, thank you all for joining us for our September Arts Saturday reading and Q&A, but I didn't see any cues out there. So
Yeah, in the chat, right?
right, I didn't see anything. Um, if you'd like to get any of Rory's books, please go to our online bookstore. That's bookshop.org/shop/Drake Arts. I'd also like to thank our many donors for supporting us here and making these. Oops, somebody has a question. Oh,
Yeah.
hold on. I'm going to stop
Hi,
this.
my camera settings are not on for some reason. Hi, this.
This is Emma, yes? Emma?
Emma, you may have muted yourself. We can't hear you.
No, she's not muted. Huh. For some reason, I can't see the chat. Dupe. Emma, I'm sorry, I can't see the chat. Tom, can you see the chat?
I pulled it up.
Oh, I see. She went away. Now she's back.
Okay. So a flaky
There
connection
you are.
perhaps.
Okay, so go ahead and ask your question.
Sorry about that. Tried to
No
turn
worries.
the camera on and it logged me out.
I
Um,
It happened.
but this was great. Rory, you were just talking about like what it's like writing young adult
Mm,
fiction, and I was a young adult who like the YA fiction I read meant a lot to me.
yeah.
And like and still means a lot to me. And so I wanted to ask what were the formative YA novels for you?
Yeah, I was
Uh,
a YA. I was a young adult, kind of like right when, like when I was in high school, I think Twilight came out like when I was a sophomore in high school. So
Oh, wow.
I was like a little bit right before there was kind of a big boom. So I didn't read a ton of specifically YA. I'm sorry, my cat just jumped onto the table. Bub, not now, ma'am. Um, but the books that I remember like loving and being like obsessed with were I don't know if you know the Redwall series. It's
That's so
I mean,
great.
you wouldn't really call they're not middle grade as we know them, but they are, I think, aimed they're not, I wouldn't say they're aimed at adults necessarily. I think you could argue the exact audience, but I read them when I was like third and fourth grade and just like I still have some of the mass markets that I have when I was that age and they just like meant everything to me. Um, and I feel like I learned a lot about like description and connecting narratives, even if they're
Oh,
not
oh,
sequels necessarily.
Sure.
Um, but I loved them
mm,
so much.
mm,
So it's a little before YA in terms of age, but the obsession was real.
Um, our kids love those books.
They're so good.
mm,
Yeah. I think it's really important to have very good young adult books.
Yeah.
It,
mm,
and it's a very hard niche to write for, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we're so lucky right now. There's just so many incredible writers working and there's such a variety. Like there's something for any and every reader.
mm,
Um, which is like I'm every time I go into a bookstore, I just go to the YA section and look at everything because
oh,
it's so cool to see the breadth of work that we have and
mm,
all the options that are available. And I think there were definitely options when I was that age, but there's so many more
mm,
now,
mm.
um, really written with kids in mind. And I think that's just so valuable.
It's a different way of writing.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
And I homeschooled my kids, and one of the things I enjoyed was going to the different public libraries.
Mm,
Every librarian has their own favorites, right? There's
yeah,
standard ones, but then as we went to different libraries, we found all these different tastes in books in there.
yeah.
There was obviously overlap, but then there also wasn't. And it was so much fun because it just expanded.
Mhm.
Went to 5 different public libraries, and that just expanded what we got in touch with and what we
Yeah,
see, which was really wonderful, really wonderful. Um, so plug for the public libraries because not everybody can afford to buy books, but public,
absolutely.
yeah,
Libraries are an incredible resource.
yeah,
mm,
and librarians are wonderful. They're just,
Yeah.
I love librarians. Uh, anyway, thank you, Emma, for your question. That was really,
Yeah, thanks for the answer and thanks for putting this on.
mm.
Yeah.
now I should go. I was about to say thank our donors for making this program possible. Um, if you'd like to be a donor, please go to drakearts.com and check our donors, check how to be a donor there or a sponsor. And please tell these people thank you for making this program possible. This and all of our programs are recorded and put on our YouTube channel. So they are available at youtube.com/@drakearts. Thank you so much for being here. This has been great.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for having me. And thank you everybody for joining.
Mm.
Yeah.